What would you do if you came home one day and found that someone had changed your house numbers without your permission? Sounds bizarre, right? But what if I told you that the person responsible wasn't a random prankster, but the president of your homeowners association, HOA? This isn't just a story about neighborhood drama. It's about power, control, and a shocking twist that led straight to handcuffs. Homeowners associations can be a blessing or a nightmare. Sure, they keep the neighborhood looking nice, but some HOA presidents take their authority way too far. And that's exactly what happened to Daniel. Daniel followed the rules, paid his dues, and just wanted to live in peace. But Karen, the HOA president, had other plans. She took it upon herself to trespass onto his property and change his house numbers. Something that, as it turns out, is completely illegal. When Daniel confronted her, she brushed him off like she was untouchable. "It's just house numbers," she said. But what she didn't realize was that tampering with address numbers is a crime. A serious one. And Daniel? Well, let's just say he knew exactly how to fight back. What happened next was something Karen never saw coming. A chain of events that would turn the tables completely and end with a police officer knocking on her door. So, how did Daniel expose her? What laws did she break? And most importantly, what was her reaction when she realized she wasn't above the law? Stick around, because this story is about to get wild. HOA Karen changed my house numbers and got arrested for it. The shocking truth about HOA abuse of power. Have you ever felt powerless against a system that seems designed to control every little aspect of your life? What if I told you that something as simple as the numbers on your house could lead to a full-blown confrontation with the law? This is not just another story about a difficult neighbor. This is about power, control, and the unexpected consequences of overstepping boundaries. Meet Daniel, an average homeowner who just wanted to live in peace. For 3 years, he followed every rule set by his homeowners association, HOA. He made sure his lawn was perfectly trimmed. His mailbox was the exact shade of beige required, and his garbage bins were placed outside only during designated hours. But none of that was enough to keep him off the radar of one particular person. Karen Wilkins, the HOA president. Karen wasn't just any HOA president. She was the self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood, enforcing her interpretation of the rules with an iron fist. And Daniel? He became her latest target. One day, he came home from work only to find that something was off. At first, he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Then, he realized his house numbers had been changed. Instead of the modern numbers he had carefully chosen, there was now an outdated brass set displaying completely incorrect digits. Someone had switched the numbers on his house. And standing there, arms crossed and smirking in satisfaction, was Karen. "Your modern numbers weren't in compliance with HOA aesthetic guidelines," she declared. Confused and frustrated, Daniel questioned her decision. But Karen wasn't interested in hearing his side. She had already made up her mind. What Karen didn't realize, however, was that Daniel wasn't just any homeowner. He was a municipal code enforcement officer, someone who knew the law inside and out. And tampering with house numbers? That's a crime. What started as an overreach of HOA power quickly spiraled into something much bigger. Because when Karen tried to enforce her made-up rule, she had no idea she was about to face real legal consequences. So, what happens when an HOA president believes she's above the law? What happens when she crosses the line from authority to criminal misconduct? And most importantly, how did this all end with police intervention? Stay with me as we unravel this wild story of HOA overreach, legal battles, and a shocking turn of events that Karen never saw coming. Because in this case, power didn't just corrupt, it led straight to handcuffs. The reign of Karen and the struggle for justice. Karen's power trip. The HOA dictator. Karen wasn't just an HOA president. She was a self-proclaimed ruler. She walked around the neighborhood as if she owned every house. Rules weren't just guidelines for her. They were weapons to exert dominance. At first, the community tolerated her antics. After all, who really pays attention to HOA politics? But over time, it became clear. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was making them up as she went. And Daniel? He became her prime target. The first battle, Karen's war on house numbers. It started with a seemingly minor issue. One day, Daniel noticed his house number had been changed. The sleek metal numbers he had installed himself were gone, replaced with an ugly, cheap plaque. Confused, he checked his security cameras. And there she was, Karen, personally removing the numbers. Daniel confronted her. "Karen, why did you change my house number?" Karen, standing with her signature smug expression, replied, "Your house number didn't comply with HOA regulations. I had to fix it. Show me the regulation that says I can't have my own numbers." Karen scoffed. "It's an HOA decision. It's final." Daniel wasn't having it. He checked the official HOA rulebook, nothing about house numbers. That's when he realized Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was making them up. And if he didn't push back now, who knows what she would try next. Escalation. The fake HOA violation notices. A week later, Daniel received an official-looking letter from the HOA. "Your property is in violation of HOA guidelines. If not corrected within 14 days, fines will be issued." The reason? Non-compliant house numbers. Daniel had had enough. He called an emergency HOA meeting. At the meeting, he laid out his case. The rule Karen cited didn't exist. She had removed his house numbers without consent. She was issuing violations based on personal vendettas. Neighbors began murmuring. A few of them, emboldened by Daniel's stance, spoke up. "Karen fined me last month for a flower pot being too large. But there's no rule about pot sizes. She forced me to paint my mailbox a color I didn't even choose. She increased HOA fees without a vote." Karen was losing control. So she did what people in power always do when challenged. She doubled down. The HOA power move, trying to evict Daniel. Unable to silence him, Karen played her trump card. "If you don't comply, we'll take legal action." HOA has the power to evict homeowners who repeatedly violate rules. Daniel was stunned. Could she really do that? Legally, HOA could issue fines, even place liens on properties, but eviction? That was another level of corruption. Daniel wasn't backing down. He reached out to a lawyer. And that's when the truth came out. Karen had been fabricating HOA authority for years. The neighborhood uprising, exposing Karen's lies. Daniel, with legal backing, sent a cease and desist letter to Karen, demanding she revoke her fraudulent violations. Karen ignored it, so Daniel took things one step further. He went door to door, gathering signatures for an official HOA vote to remove Karen from office. To no one's surprise, residents were eager to sign. By the time the HOA board met for the vote, the entire neighborhood was against Karen. In a dramatic showdown, Daniel presented proof Karen fabricated rules, evidence of unjust fines, legal documents proving she had no authority to evict anyone. When the vote was cast, Karen was out. And just like that, her reign crumbled. But the story wasn't over yet. Because Karen, she wasn't going down without a fight. The downfall of Karen and the fight for justice. Karen's last stand. The HOA tyrant refuses to go quietly. Most people, when caught in a web of lies and corruption, would step down quietly. But not Karen. Losing her HOA presidency wasn't just a minor setback. It was an existential crisis. She had built her identity around controlling the neighborhood. And now, with that power stripped away, she refused to accept defeat. Karen tried everything to reverse her downfall. First, she claimed the vote was invalid, arguing that the signatures Daniel collected were forged. Then, she tried to rally her few remaining supporters, insisting that removing her from the HOA was illegal. Finally, she threatened to sue Daniel personally for harassment and defamation. But here's the problem. When you burn too many bridges, no one is left to help you. Her few remaining allies, those who had benefited from her rule, began distancing themselves. One neighbor even exposed that Karen had been using HOA funds for personal expenses. The final nail in the coffin? The HOA's new leadership ordered a financial audit. And what they found? Fraud. The fallout? Justice catches up. It turned out Karen had been secretly funneling HOA funds into her personal account, overcharging homeowners for non-existent violations, and pocketing the fines, using HOA money to renovate her own home while rejecting neighbors' renovation requests. Once the truth came out, Karen was not just removed from the HOA, she was facing legal trouble. The new HOA board filed a lawsuit against her for financial misconduct. Daniel? He had gone from victim to hero, leading the charge to reclaim the neighborhood. Neighbors who once feared speaking out now came forward with stories of Karen's abuse of power. And the best part? Karen's own house was now non-compliant with the actual HOA rules. She had painted her house an unauthorized color, a violation under the real guidelines she had ignored for years. The irony? The new HOA board fined her. And unlike the fake violations she issued, this one was real. The lesson? Standing up to corruption. Daniel's battle against Karen wasn't just about HOA politics. It was a lesson in standing up to abuse of power. This wasn't just about an overzealous HOA president. It was about how unchecked authority can spiral into corruption. Karen thought she was untouchable until someone refused to back down. The story serves as a reminder. Bullies rely on silence. The moment people speak up, their power crumbles. Authority without accountability always leads to corruption. Fighting back may be difficult, but when the truth is on your side, persistence wins. And Daniel? He didn't just reclaim his right to live peacefully. He saved an entire neighborhood from years of unjust rule. As for Karen, she moved away defeated and disgraced. But the impact of her reign? That neighborhood would never forget. And thanks to Daniel, they would never let another Karen rise to power again. That concludes the story. Let me know if you want any tweaks or additions.